Good morning and welcome to episode 43 of Talking to Artists. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm really excited to have Holly Friesen join us today. She's a landscape painter from Montreal, and she'll be our episode 43. But before that happens, I just wanted to share some super exciting news that my sister Helen Utzel and I have been accepted into a residency at Chateau d'Orcovo. So it's in France, I think in the Champagne region, and we'll be going, hopefully, based on travel and COVID and everything, hopefully the beginning of the spring of 2022, so a year from now. So pretty excited about that, so I will keep you posted. So just going to bring Shelley. Oh, Holly is just requested. So I will bring Holly in, and we will talk about her very beautiful work. It's very dynamic, and I love the energy and stuff of it. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Kate. That's exciting news.
I know. I'm pretty pumped. Like it's going to be, it's a fairly small group, I think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of musicians and writers as well as painters and visual artists. So I think that'll be really cool. And Helen and I are going to be doing basically a collaboration. So we'd like to we wanted to work together and collaborate on a body of work for a while, but she's in Vancouver and I'm in Toronto, so it hasn't really worked. But
you know, I was accepted to go there last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Well,
and did you go? I guess you didn't go.
It was one of the many disappointments of last year. So I know the place, like I've researched it and I have friends who have gone, and it looks like a dream.
Yeah. So were you not able to sort of move it forward, or you just chose not to because of the uncertainty?
It just, yeah, my everything just became too unknown. So I've canceled it, and because I have a lot of other stuff on the go for this year. So yeah. But yay, when are you going?
Well, I'm not sure. So originally we kind of said, I think May of 2022 was our proposed time, because for the same thing, it's kind of like, well, all these shows have been canceled, all the dates are moving. Like it used to be that you kind of knew, well, Chicago One of a Kind's in April, so I can work around that. But
yeah, and it's so unknown right now. Even travel's unknown, right? So
yeah.
That's the part. But 2022, you should be good.
That's what I figure. I'm hoping a year from now will be kind of.
I'm hoping too.
I hope that this year we'd be traveling, right? So I'm a born optimist.
Who'd have thought? Yeah.
I know. So anyway, let's talk about your work. I love your work. I love the energy of your work. And I just love the whole connection you have to, I don't know, kind of to the soul of the earth and kind of that connection of, I think, preservation and stuff. But maybe you can talk a little bit about your work for.
Sure. It's that is the heart of it. You know, I think people ask me when, they always ask, when did you become an artist? And I just say, well, I was kind of born that way.
I think most of us are.
It's a curse and a blessing, I tell you.
Yeah.
But, I grew up in Saskatchewan, so the prairies are the landscape of my childhood, which is interesting. But there was a bush behind us. It was called the bush, but to me it was this huge forest. And I spent so much time back there making things and weaving grasses and chopping mushrooms and making secret concoctions. And that to me was, there was that, I'd sit in those trees. Those trees were my best friends. And I think, something from the earth just came into me at a very early age. And I developed a rapport with it that just has never gone away. I mean, I do paint other things. I paint figuratively sometimes, but my love, and especially lately, because just so much is going on with the earth, and it needs to have a voice, I feel.
Yeah.
And
I agree. No, I totally get you, because I grew up in Sarnia, which is right on Lake Huron, and our house was right on Lake Huron, so it was an amazing place because the water and the wind and the weather as it crosses Lake Huron becomes kind of a part of your childhood. But the other thing I just loved is there was a lot of natural clay resources. So we used to kind of go and get the natural clay, make pinch pots, and they would like bake in the sun, and they broke.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing. It's so much fun.
And that feeling of getting your fingers into the earth, I think, is lovely. And at the cottage, it's been wonderful because, we've been able to see the seasons. But I do remember that, living in a big, busy city like Toronto, and I'm always busy. But as soon as my feet touch the earth, it's just like, oh,
isn't
calm.
It amazing? It's amazing. And I go out, I've had to stay in the city for a year. Like, this has been a trial for me, believe me. But I do escape up to the Laurentians to go hiking with a good friend pretty regularly. And, you know, the second I enter the forest, all those big problems I think I have or that I'm trying to work out, they just dissipate. And I can feel my whole body just go, and there's the trees again. And it's like, yeah, this is the real world. Ultimately, this is the real world. And
Yes,
it's
yeah.
just so, so grounding.
And
And I
it
think as human
feeds your
beings,
soul.
it does. And we're so connected to that. And I think we've ruptured that connection as a human species. And so the paintings, I get so many comments from people. The biggest compliment I can get is when someone contacts me and says, I was walking in the woods and I saw your paintings everywhere. Because what they're saying is they're actually seeing the woods. It's opened up. It's not about my paintings. It's opened up their vision to feeling and seeing and hearing what's around them. And that's ultimately when you can feed that connection, I think we'll be more protective of our home, our planet.
Yeah, but obviously too, you're tapping into and able to capture in your paintings not just the visual representation of the
Mm,
woods, it's more of the energy and feeling, and that's why they're kind of making that connection between your work and the actual landscape, right?
well, thank you for saying that. That's really great to hear, you know. Yes. I'm just in there painting, making marks.
I guess you just absorbed it so much. Like that's the thing too, right? Sometimes
Right,
it's hard to be able to articulate where does the inspiration come from because it's like you say, it's so much a part of all of the things that you've lived and you've survived and you've
right.
embodied that then comes out in the work in ways that isn't always able to articulate it easily, I think.
Exactly. And, I did have a major turning point where, I lived up north in the Laurentians for 25 years where I raised my girls. And that landscape, I adore it. All the water, all the Canadian Shield rock, the boreal forest. There's something about it that I adore it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was painting in watercolors for the first 20 years. And, I'd be in the woods. I'd go in the woods a lot to paint. And, this beautiful rapport you have when you're observing and then you paint and it feeds back and forth. It's like a dance. But this one day, no kidding, it just kind of everything turned upside down and flipped inside out. And it felt like, and I still have a hard time articulating it, but it felt like it wasn't me observing the world out there. It was the trees and the rivers observing me. And it was like, it felt so arrogant as that I thought I was the one. Here it is all along. They're just using me. But it was this really beautiful shift in perception of, maybe no, humans aren't necessarily at the top of the pack. Like
Right.
it was just a really cool thing that happened, and the painting really shifted after that. It got bigger and more energetic, and I went from watercolors. I kept expanding until they went right off the sheets, and then I went into acrylics and oils, and now I paint these massive canvases. So yeah, there was a shifting.
Well, it
That
sounds like too with doing massive canvases too, you get to truly allow the viewer to be enveloped by the
hmm
woods and by the experience and stuff, which is pretty amazing. Have you read the book? I'm sure you have the I think it's called The Secret Life of Trees.
I have, and everyone asked me that.
I know. Well, I'm going to say I'm sure you probably read 1,000 times, but I'm one of these. My sister has recommended it for like 10 years, and I only just read it about a year ago,
Oh,
and I'm like,
great!
it's so amazing.
Truly, right?
Yeah.
They're magnificent beings. They really
But
are.
it talks to exactly what you were saying, I think, that everything is interconnected in ways that we don't fully understand and it isn't always totally visible. But
Right,
there's an energy there that connects the trees
right.
and it connects us to the trees and connects us to the earth. And I think that it's a blessing and an honor to be able to kind of then execute that in the way that you can help other people see it more clearly.
Right, and feel it, and feel that
Yeah.
connection. Because I think
Yeah.
ultimately we all do feel it. It's just some of us have forgotten it, just in our
Hmm.
busy lives and the way we've created life in cities and all. And as a matter of fact, when I moved to Montreal, uh, I don't know, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I was a little bit terrified, and I thought because I'd never really lived in a city, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die. What's gonna happen?
Look at that, you survived and thrived.
I did. And when I live across from a big, beautiful park, and I'm on the second floor of a triplex. So I'm actually like, it's like I'm in a treehouse. It's really cool.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
that has helped me a lot. but I also found that the nature within an urban environment almost becomes more profound and more beautiful because it's sort of framed by man-made all over the place. So when it comes through, it's just so loved. And especially during this pandemic, that park has been packed with people
Oh
because,
yeah.
it's the only place
Well,
to go.
and I think that's also the other interesting thing too, because I live in Toronto, and so a lot of people say, "Oh, how can you survive in the city if there's no greenery?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I have my little garden, which is my oasis. But if you really look at these cities, like you look at a profile and an aerial view of Toronto and in Montreal as well, there's a huge amount of parklands, and there's a huge amount of places you can go. You just have to find them."
Yeah. And I think there's a growing awareness too that people want it and need it, just for our own sanity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you were up in the Laurentians, I think, ran an art school? You taught, I
I
think.
did. I did. Well, my girls were young. I started Art Beat Studio,
That's a
and
cool name.
yeah, I love that name.
I
And
feel like you should do something else with it now because it's
I
cool.
know, I know. Um, it started off it was art and nature classes. So when my oldest was 3 years old, we'd go out in the forest with a bunch of her friends and we'd like play in the woods and build fairy houses, just like I did when I was little. And then we come back to my studio and make art. And it turned out, it just kept growing until eventually I moved to many different spaces with it. I went into schools, I did all kinds of things. And eventually it became like a little art school. And then the parents started wanting classes as well. So it expanded into adults. And yeah, it was fun. Well, it's a lot of work. And I really enjoyed it because obviously I was raising my girls at the time and it sort of melded in with that and it kept my hands in the art world.
Hmm.
But yeah, now people often ask me to teach, and it's such a different energy, than being completely immersed in your own work. I found I would go to my own work and I'd be analyzing colors and charts and perspective, and it would just block me off.
Well, it gets too tight, right? Like you lose that kind of that I don't know that chi energy or whatever that just kind of flows
Yeah. I
from
mean, it
you to
was
the brush
great.
to the
It was
canvas.
fun. I actually learned a lot, right?
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of people. Yeah, that when they teach, well, I guess it makes sense because when you teach, you have to kind of know it in a way that's not just intuitive, but you have to be able to articulate it,
Right.
which
And yeah,
changes your knowing a little bit,
it's the
right?
intellect more, like which is good. I mean, it's good to learn those things. You have to learn the ABCs before you write, obviously. But
Hmm.
then there comes a point, like when that shift happened, it also sort of happened is that I knew my colors by then really well, and I knew what materials I could use. And so it became intuitive. The painting broke through into being like, I just know where my yellow is on the palette. I know where things are. And so I can it's like breathing, it's just this beautiful flow. Not always, sometimes, it's like,
Those I call
but
my difficult children.
when the
Take a
time
long time to birth.
yeah, yeah.
And so you work in oil primarily now,
Sorry,
or acrylic, or do you
acrylic.
work in oil now or acrylic, or?
Acrylic, but here's the cool thing. Since the pandemic, at the beginning, I live alone, and I thought I was good with being alone. I actually love my solitude, but it got a bit much. And
I get that.
and I started to get anxiety at night, which isn't really common for me. So I was a little freaked out. So what I did is I pulled out the watercolors and I just started painting at night on my dining room table. And I would listen at night to CBC's at the time, but still on, After Dark. Odario Williams, he plays this beautiful eclectic playlist, and it's kind of trippy. And the later the night gets, the trippier it gets. It's really cool. So I'd sit at my dining room table in this pool of light, and I'd paint these just flowy watercolors on Yupo paper, so it's even more
Oh, I love
flowy.
Yupo.
I
Yeah,
know, it's
that's so
just so
cool.
wonderful. And that became like this little night studio that I developed. And I've got a whole series from that. And then I also took up rug hooking, which was really fun and also
That
very
was through
calming.
Deanna Fitzpatrick, right? Who was
Yes,
our guest a few weeks
yes.
ago.
I,
Yeah.
I wanted to do it and I thought, well, how do I even begin? Like, and I Googled rug hooking and I came across Tian, and she's just a hoot. I really like
Hmm.
her.
Yeah, we had a great chat too.
Yeah, I listened to your chat. She's a great friend. And if I go to Nova Scotia, I'm definitely going to go see her because she's
Oh
wonderful.
yeah. I'm sure she
Yeah,
has thousands of people that once this pandemic is over are going to descend
for
upon
sure.
her.
Yeah, I have no doubt. Great
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah, I'm actually, I keep going to her website. I haven't quite figured out exactly what I want to do and how I want to start, but, and I'm terrible too. I always feel like, I can't just do what's in front of me. I have to create something different or new from it, even though I have absolutely no skills in rug kicking. I've never done it before. And it's just like kind of
Right.
arrogant that I assume I should change it, especially because her designs are so beautiful. But,
She does have some very nice designs, actually. And I did
mhm.
do her, she gives courses online, and I did her painterly rug hooking, which is
Oh,
really cool because she looks at art a lot and studies art. And so she does do things in a painterly way because, I didn't want to just do shapes and fill in the shapes. I love the blending of colors and
yeah, yeah.
textures. And she really has a way of doing that. Actually, here I can show you. So I just started translating some of my paintings, watercolors, into the rug hookings, and they're really fun. They're like, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful.
See how all the colors are blended though? Like
Yeah.
it's like painting with wool. So it's been this really great discovery for me. And now I'm doing a fairly big one, which whoo, the big ones take a lot longer.
Hey, can you do me a favor and take a picture of that and send it to me so I can add it to when I do the YouTube?
Sure,
I can add
sure,
it to my notes. It would be really cool.
sure. And if
Yeah.
I have, I don't think I have the watercolor. I took it to the studio, but I'll send you the watercolor as
It'll
well.
take me a while to get to
I
the
have to find
podcast
it.
anyway, so.
Yeah, okay, sure, sure.
And so I think you were when we were chatting yesterday, you were saying that you're actually doing a show right now that includes your rug hooking as well as your
Yeah,
watercolors and
that's going to be fun. It's going to be in Saranac Lake at Blue Seed Studios, and it's going to include the watercolors and the rug hookings. Yeah, so there'll be smaller works, which is unusual for me, but I like them because they're the sort of the intimate pieces done during the pandemic. So there's a lot of
mhm.
self-reflection and anxiety and angst in them.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully they will calm people. They won't feel the angst
Yeah,
part
well,
of it. They'll feel the
it gets transmuted.
calmingness of it.
That's the thing, right? It gets transmuted.
Yeah.
Actually, when I really started painting from that place of your belly, from emotions, when I was 24, I was out of school by then, was I? Yes. And I was up in Tremblant, and my brother came to visit me, and this is a long time ago, and uh, he drowned in front of me, and
Oh my goodness.
I was 20. I'm sorry, I was 26. He was 24, and so that was obviously a
Horrible experience.
life-altering experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that young, to confront death that young was really well, intense to say the least. But how I dealt with it was I painted his portrait for a year, and it was like saying goodbye to him, like stroking his cheek when I paint the cheek or like
Hmm.
it was a really beautiful way of transmuting all that grief and pain into something, well, art. And it really, now I consider it that Michael left me with that gift of being able to transmute emotion into the painting. So it doesn't mean it's going to come out like as this, although sometimes it does, but it transmutes into something beautiful, hopefully. That's the amazing thing about art, is how cathartic it can be in it's kind of like magic, really.
Well, how wonderful too that he was able to kind of give you that gift, and then there's a
Yes,
little piece of him in all of the work that you do. So he kind of
absolutely.
continues to live in that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I did a post recently about he drowned out of a red canoe, and every now and then you'll see a red canoe appear in my work. I actually never know when it's going to happen because I very rarely paint man-made objects, but this red canoe, actually the other day I painted a yellow and a green one. I don't know what that means, but the red canoe pops up like maybe once or twice a year. It'll show up in a painting, which is, I think that's still part of him coming through.
That's wonderful to have those kind of rituals, though, where you can see it over the years, where you can kind of see this red canoe pop up, and it becomes part
Right.
of your history and your storytelling as well.
Right. It's like, I doing a series, I sometimes I say, okay, I'm going to do a series now, and I'll do one, and then I'm off on another direction. And
Yeah.
my former partner said to me, no, Holly, sometimes series are throughout the years. They come back and they go away and they come. So the thread is there, but it might be decades long
Hmm.
series that, yeah.
Well, and sometimes I think I have a series where intellectually I feel like I want to make it into a series, but it's not really quite just not quite feeling it yet. So maybe I just haven't quite figured out how to navigate it, or haven't figured out how to make it larger. Like it works really well small, but not large.
Right.
So yeah, some of that does take time, and sometimes it just doesn't really work, right? Like sometimes
Right.
you can feel something that doesn't really work.
Oh,
And so you're you got the two big shows. So you got one up in Saranac Lake, you were saying,
yeah.
and I
And
think you were mentioning too. You've got another one that's happening at the same time.
yeah, it's going to be running in tandem. And of course, I didn't bring the dates, but it's summer.
That's
And if you follow me, you'll see the dates.
that's right.
The other one will be at
It's a
Lake
teaser. You
Placid.
have to follow you to find the
That's
dates.
right. Please follow me. The other one is at Lake Placid Center for the Arts, which is a beautiful art center in Lake Placid, and I've had a show there before. I guess it was maybe 4 years ago. I'm really bad with time, but this is in conjunction with a Adirondack photographer and very good friend, Tom Curley. And we often hike and paddle together throughout the Adirondacks. And he takes his big, huge lens and cameras, and I take my iPhone. And I call it gathering images. And sometimes I sketch out there. But most all the paintings are from those trips and adventures. And it'll be really fun to see it come together because we've gone to some extraordinary places.
And how do you collaborate? Like, is it more of an intuitive thing, or do you talk about what you're going to do, or?
Tom showed me, he has, so many photos. He showed me some of his photos and then we've kind of we've actually focused on reflections, just because there's so many and there's something really beautiful about that. And especially coming out of the pandemic, it was, well, there's a few things. There's a poem I found by David White called Twice Blessed, and it's about looking into a reflection and many other things like only poets can say. But the whole idea of you get this beauty on the earth and then you get it reflected back again in the water.
Yeah.
So you're getting this double, and then again that you're getting the vision of a painter and a photographer at the same time. So I'm going to do paintings of a few of his photos based on his photos, and then otherwise we'll just have some of our different works as well. So it's sort of independent but collaborated.
Oh, that sounds really like it's going to be fascinating though to see everything all together.
Yeah, it will be. I think it'll be really fun.
It's always collaborations are always interesting, right? Because I love the concept of them, but sometimes to figure out how to actually do them is
Yes.
a challenge.
Yeah, it can be, that's for sure. But it's amazing what not last year, because last year it just doesn't exist, does it?
I know, yeah. It was different collaborations.
I mean,
Yeah.
2 years ago, I curated with a friend of mine who's a writer, poet. We chose duos of painters and poets together. So you get a partner of one or the other, and then you created a piece together. And that was amazing what people came up with. It was just, the range was astounding, really beautiful.
Well, and I guess it's nice too to sometimes be pushed into a different direction, right? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of. I'm doing a show right now with my sister. It's going to be in June at the Leslie Grove Gallery in Toronto, and it's called My Family Garden. And we're both very much inspired by nature, so that kind of made sense. But it also has to do with the fact our grandmother was an artist, and she and I are both artists, and it's kind of like a bit of a family thing. So we're trying to, yeah, we're trying to sort of figure out how to, and we're kind of what our concept is that she does a piece and I do a piece, and then we almost like switch and use that piece to inspire the next one. So it becomes this continuation.
And like
I guess
a
it'll
garden
be.
in a way, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
That's
And
beautiful.
if the seeds plant the next generation of flowers, it's kind
Yeah,
of,
I love
that's
that.
the concept. We'll see if it works out in real life.
Well, that's it. It'll take on its own life form like gardens do, it kind of goes off then.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because I tend to like the English country garden, which is like such a huge conglomerate of mess of stuff. You don't really know if it's a flower or a weed, but I like that energy.
Yeah, that tangle of
Yeah, for sure.
beautiful.
And I think you're saying one of your shows was being launched with Artworks, which is a.
Yes, thank you for.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Yeah, just because
Sure.
I was quite fascinated to me because it's a virtual exhibition platform, right?
Yes, it is, and it caught my attention because during this pandemic, I'd created all this work and I figured, well, I can't get in a gallery anywhere to show it. So maybe I'll do something online. And I was sort of exploring it, but to be honest, I'm exhausted from online stuff.
It's a lot more work.
And so then I came across artworks and they just were so pro and so clean and so organized. It's a couple of women, as far as I know, that are running it, and they put there's different levels you can have, and where you can. I took the full shebang, so you actually can go in a virtual gallery and sort of walk around and see the paintings, which is kind of neat, I think. And then they I think it's 9 to 12 paintings, and you put them up, and there's a pre-sale for anyone who wants to get dibs first. You get a code for that. And it's just really well displayed and easy to use and very pro. So I'm going to give it a whirl. I think it's
and when does that open?
April 19th, I'm guessing.
I can't help you with that.
I will post it.
No, that sounds interesting, and it's really, that is one of the kind of cool things that's come from COVID, right? As much as it's obviously there's a lot of negativity, but there's also some kind of positive things where I think some of these technologies have really been given kind of the impetus to sort of create them, but also for artists to actually to use them, because in the past it's just so much easier just take your stuff to an outdoor show or a gallery and sell it that way, right?
Right. And what's cool also is right now you can kind of enter shows that are all over the world because you're not actually going physically.
Although then you think, I have to ship it if it sells.
I know. Well, yeah, there's that. But the other exciting thing is my gallery in Lake Placid is taking my work to the Affordable Art Fair in New York, which they just got into. So that's really exciting. But the shipping is daunting, and because they want some really big ones, and I'm kind of freaking out. Like,
you got to make a crate. I'll send you my crate diagram.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I'm having trouble with is finding couriers who will take over a certain size. It's not that obvious. So, yeah, anyone out there can help me with that, I'd be happy.
Well, and I sent a crate that was for a 48 by 72 inch painting. And I did actually send it by FedEx. It wasn't FedEx Ground. I think it was FedEx Freight or something.
Yeah, I have to explore it. This is actually bigger than that. So yeah, it's just.
Well, and I used to use Phoenix, like when I did the outdoor or the art fairs in San Diego and New York and Miami. And they're sort of, it's called Phoenix.
Okay.
And they're US based, but then they come pick it up right from your house and
really
do all the customs. And yeah, I've never had a problem with them. They've been great.
Thank you. I will check that out. Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the contact information. Roger at Phoenix. He's great.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm sure he's actually probably not very busy right now, so he'll have lots of attention.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting to be able to do that, because that's again, it's really important. I think especially living in Canada, where we have kind of three main really city centers for selling art, maybe four. It's kind of it's important to get outside of our own borders, I think, to.
Yeah, it's I'm very grateful to my galleries are only in the States. I'm looking for a really good gallery in Canada. But it just does so well there. I think what happened is, I did a show in Old Forge, New York, a solo show. It was really spectacular, actually, and that opened up the doors to the Adirondacks for me, which I really didn't know anything about. And this one woman in particular who has become a very dear friend, and she gave me a place to stay, and she had a pop-up show for me in her home and invited her friends, and that just opened all these new doors for me, and not to mention the beauty of the Adirondacks, where and it translates really well from the Laurentians, because the Adirondacks are actually just an extension of the Laurentians. There's this border.
It says same mountain range or something, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you're getting, there's actually these huge rocks in the forest, like you find here, but they're called erratics, and they're picked up by the glaciers and pushed. And so there's actually erratics from the Laurentians that have been dropped in the Adirondacks. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And how did that original Old Forge show happen for you? Like, how did you find this
opportunity in New York.
That's the year I said yes to everything. And one of the crazy things that happened was I met this sculptor on Etsy who said, wow, I don't, he was sort of playing around too. And he said, you know, you don't usually see this level of work on Etsy. This is when it was way back now. There's all kinds of things on Etsy. But he said, how are you finding it? And we just started talking, and he does these incredible sculptures of birds. Jason Tennant, I believe is his name. And he said, we just started talking, and he said, I just had a show at this gallery. I can contact the curator because I think she'd love your work. And so I wrote to her after that, and she said, yes, please come on down. And so it was an adventure, because I had to learn how to cross the border with all my paintings and brokerage and renting vehicles. And I mean, I was in tears many times, and I didn't understand the brokerage language, and it was very daunting, I have to say.
Yes. Well, like anything new is, right? Once you figure it out, you're like, oh yeah, it's good now.
Right. So I made it, and then, you know, I was driving there, and it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. It was very beautiful, but in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, oh, what have I done? But they were so kind and so amazing. And the space was beautiful. And they said, go have a shower, and we're going to set up the whole show and come back tonight. And I came back, and they were all excited because the signature piece, the big triptych in the front, they sold it before the show even opened. And
wow.
They said, wait, because the woman's coming back. She wants to meet you. And that's this lovely woman who we then became very good friends with.
Like, oh, that's a great story.
Yeah, isn't it?
Well, and the thing I just love the best about it is this whole concept of saying yes. And I'm a huge supporter of that too, because you never know where things are going to go. Like sometimes those things that seem like they're not going to be great opportunities, if you analyze them and you look at the risk profile of them, and yet they end up being amazing for reasons that are unpredictable. So saying yes opens up new doors.
So very true. And often I find the things that I think will just be some little thing and okay, I'll do it, ends up being the most amazing. And then the one where I expend huge amounts of energy and cash and output of all sorts, nothing happens. Like, oh man. So you really never know where it's going to come from. And it's a lot to do with people. It's the people you meet and that you connect with. And that's really, like I was saying, I've learned to trust the paintings and let the paintings lead me where they need to go. And they have just introduced me to some of the sweetest people and most beautiful landscapes. So I'm going with that.
But it sounds like fundamentally there's also, I mean, you know, you're learning to trust the paintings, but you also seem to trust your instinct when it comes to other people. Because I think this is what I see, you know, you see this in a lot of these art chats too. It's like someone approached me and that the initial thought is they must be scamming me, they must be wanting something from me, as opposed to, no, they really love your work and they're looking for a collaboration that could be amazing, right? And there has to be a level of trust and risk taking, and the reality, it might all go sideways, but it might also be incredible.
Right. And if I'm really not feeling it, if it's something, you know, I have with time, when I don't say yes to everything anymore.
I would say that to my kids. Yes, say yes to everything within reason.
Yeah.
Okay, say no.
I actually have the luxury of being able to afford to do that a bit more. So I do pick the things that really resonate with me and I'm really excited about. And sometimes I actually have to turn down things now that I'd rather not turn down, but you know, I've also learned to not burn myself out, because that year I said yes to everything.
Yeah.
It was pretty exhausting.
But it sounds like it provided fuel for things like in the years to come too, right? So that's sometimes too. Like, I agree, you have to kind of balance it out, but I think.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Like, I think we were talking the other day. Like, I've never really understood, and I appreciate I'm a entrepreneur at heart too. So I mean, I have a pretty high risk tolerance. But people that kind of like are going to look at a show and they're going to go and audit the show and they're going to see the show and I'm like, just do the show. Like, the only way you know if something's going to work is to do it yourself, right? Because you know, you can waste a lot of time.
Yeah, that would be, I just wouldn't even have time. I'd see, you know why I wouldn't do that? Because it would be boring for me to do.
I know.
It just isn't feeding my life force to do that.
Yeah.
It has to be something that I'm getting, that excite, like you can feel it when it's on track with you. Like it just, you get excited, you resonate with it, you know, and same in the studio. If I start a painting and, you know, I'm doing something that I've done before, or I don't know, but it starts to feel like I'm making widgets.
Yeah.
I just go, okay, whoa, 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 you're way off track here. Nope, nope, nope. You got to be a little bit scared with every painting, a little bit like, okay, where's this going? This
Yeah.
doesn't look like it's going to be too good, but stay with it. And it breaks, you continually break through into new places, which I find so exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of kind of the be bold and embrace the serendipity,
Yeah.
like things happen that you can't always predict, right? But
Hmm.
yeah, I agree. Like I also find that for me, I like the challenge of doing something new and something different. Like obviously through the art, but also through doing kind of different shows and things like that. I think it just feeds, I don't know, feeds the energy of
It
moving
does.
forward and not being
It does.
stagnant.
Yeah. And that's so important, right? To keep, keep pushing those edges to stay. I, I feel it's important as an artist to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Hmm.
That's just a constant state. You're just never sure what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that maybe is the formula for success too, because if you're feeling too comfortable, then are you pushing your art? Are you pushing your art business? Are you pushing your career? Are you pushing anything that's kind of around you? Or are you just creating this nice safe bubble, which
Right,
is safe but doesn't usually create breakthrough opportunities?
right. And I often say the paintings are way ahead of me, intellectually or cerebrally. They're a lot comes from the unconscious, and so often I don't understand why I'm painting whatever I'm painting, but I may understand it tomorrow or a month from now, or sometimes it's years later. I look at a painting and I go, oh, now I get it.
It's a good one.
Or, oh. Yeah, that's something I've learned too. I really don't let anything go out of the studio anymore unless I'm really made my peace with it, and we're good, because I've done that before, and then I see the painting somewhere where it's landed in a new home a few years later, and I'm like, ooh, why did I let that go out into the world? So I do not do that anymore.
But do you think it's truly that painting wasn't any good, or you've just moved on to something different? Like in the same way I find it's like this painting's been hanging around for a year. Like I need to just get it out of my studio. Like whatever's on the easel is the best I've ever done,
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true
stuff
too.
that's sitting in my
That's true.
studio
No,
for a year because
and
of
yeah, and there's pieces that are like, pieces I did 10 years ago, I've evolved to a different place. That doesn't make them less by any means. That's where I was at that time, and they're
Mhm.
documenting that, and I like that. That's cool. I'm talking about ones that I kind of knew that I should be letting go of.
Right.
And I did do a
Yeah.
lot, but more in my younger years, and but although I guess I could say it's in my younger years, so it is part of the growing pains that were going on then.
And fundamentally, I mean, really, the person who's got it on their wall totally
Yeah, there.
loves it and totally gets that feeling
Yeah,
of the forest and stuff.
yeah.
And I don't know,
Yeah.
as an artist, sometimes I think you have to sort of relinquish that portion of it, like how other, especially
There's
for me as an abstract painter, how other people see it. I have to just kind of be at peace with that.
That's very true. And I'd love to get inside the heads of people who view, because I'm sure everyone sees it completely differently. You
Hmm.
know? Wouldn't that be fun to see, like what people are actually seeing?
Well, and that's what I really miss about doing these outdoor shows and stuff, because people come up and talk to you about that stuff. And especially
That
with people who've only seen your stuff like on social media, so it's the electronic version, then they see it in real life. And there's just this, I don't know, this whole conversation that happens. And
right.
sometimes you really know that they resonate with your work. And other times I've had people that have come up to my work and kind of say, yeah, I see like cityscapes and buildings. And I'm like, totally don't see that, totally don't feel that. But that's kind of interesting.
I know it is. It's fascinating, right? And people can see it on different levels too, like landscapes. I mean, that's a very accessible thing for people to see. So you can, you see just there. But I mean, for me, there's so much going on underneath. There's this writhing, seething, wild, chaotic natural world. And that's all going into it. And some people pick up on that. And some people really see into it. And of course, I just want to kiss them.
Yeah, because they
And
really
it's
get it.
fine, whatever level you're seeing it on, that's fine. But it's interesting too that there's like underneath all my paintings is I underpaint a lot in cadmium red light, or lately magenta. I'm back in magenta again. So it's this vibrant, and for me that represents that life pulse, that life force, that it's just underneath the whole painting. And sometimes it'll get covered up completely, but it's still informing everything that's there. It's like a heart.
It still seems to peek through, though. Don't you
Yeah,
think? Like,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't know. I always sort of see that as a group of seven thing because they seem to have done that color a lot. And I know a lot of Canadian landscape painters who use these really bright colors
Right.
underneath, which I think is really wonderful. I don't see a lot of non-Canadian artists using that.
Hmm.
Now that just, I'm not a
Interesting.
landscape painter, so I haven't actually fully researched that, so that could be totally
Right.
BS. But that's
Right.
kind of my thinking on it, which I think is also cool because I think again it connects us to our Canadian landscape and our
Mm.
Canadian land.
Mm. Which is something else I want to mention is I'm doing a show at Algonquin Art Center because last year was the anniversary of the group of seven, 100 years since I started painting in Algonquin Park.
Hmm.
And so last year I was supposed to be in a show as the featured artist, which was super exciting. And then
Wow.
all year they kept saying, well, maybe. And then in the end, they just closed for the whole year. So they're going to do it this year, and I will be part of that. And it's a follow up because I did a residency there the previous year. I stayed in the park and painted. And the cool thing was I got to hang out with the naturalists and the scientists in the trailers in the back. And we went out and howled with the wolves. Like, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
Oh, it was incredible. And I went and saw Tom Thompson's grave, which is actually like this whole mysterious thing. And you have to trek into the woods, and there's this big, scary birch tree right above it. Like it's someone should, well, I'm sure they have made movies about it, but it was really quite an experience. It was
Huh.
beautiful. So I'm looking forward
That's
to that.
that sounds great. And so that was an artist residency you did like a few years ago, I guess, did you?
Yeah, I did that in September 2019. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And do you
Yeah.
do a lot of art? I mean, you said you did that when you applied to the chateau, and do you do a lot of residencies or?
Yeah, I love them. I haven't done a lot, but I was going to the Pooch Cove, Newfoundland residency, and that got canceled.
Mm,
So I am intending to go this year in September. Fingers crossed.
yep.
And it just prior to going to the one in Algonquin Park, I was in California in Sonoma County at Chalk Hill Artist Residency. Amazing, just so amazing. I was on a 275-acre vineyard, working vineyard, in a little ranch
Wow.
house in the middle of the vineyards. It was so magical with a barn, like this little beautiful barn as my studio. Oh, it was, I can't even tell you how amazing. The only thing was, it ended up, the fire, big fire started while I was there, literally outside my bedroom window. And
Oh my
that's a
God.
whole adventure that was not so fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Terrifying.
So I ran from fire for a week, like not knowing where I was going or what I was doing. It was great. It really brought home how those fires are terrifying. And those poor people, they live with that every year. Like, it's what a nightmare. Just
Yeah, I know.
horrible.
It's I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was really that part. So it was this really weird residency because it was started off magical, beautiful, amazing, and ended up like this really terrifying thing.
Well, very memorable, obviously.
Yeah, I
Well,
would
that
actually
sounds
like to go
cool.
back, like not in fire season this time, like in the spring.
Yeah, so maybe the winter. They have
Yeah,
nice winters there, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just sort of just starting my. I mean, I've done a couple of art trips and stuff. Like we went to China and stuff. I haven't really done an artist residency where you get to really immerse yourself in just the work. Which
Mm.
so sometimes I need to just do it and find the time for it, I guess.
Yeah, and I almost wish I had done them a bit earlier in my life as well because I've made so many great connections with other artists. Well, Sonoma County, I was alone there, but in like a Vermont art studio, that's an amazing one, which is closed at the moment. But
Hmm.
there you're 50 artists at a time, and from all over the world. Writers, I think there's like most are visual artists, but then they have like 12 writers at the same time, and they've started taking over this whole little town, and you stay in these houses and everything revolves around art, and you get this big studio that you can work in all day and all night if you want, and they have artists from New York come in and give talks and will come and critique your work. um, but the connections with the other artists, that's actually where I met the guy that is Chateau, I don't know how to say it, the residency you're going
It
to.
is Dorkovo.
Dorkovo.
I had to Google it.
Yeah, yeah. So he goes there quite often, and I think he's from Eastern Europe somewhere. But it's just these connections, and a lot of New York artists that I'm still really good friends with, and I follow their work and their shows, and we've met up again and become friends. And so those residencies are really fantastic for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it sounds like it. So I'm now inspired. We've had a number of guests who have talked about residencies and stuff. I think I just have to, I've always done so many shows, like I usually do between 20 and 25 shows a year. So it's been really hard to fit them in. So I think I need to just maybe reprioritize a little bit.
That's a lot of shows.
It is a lot of shows, yeah. Well, say yes, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've committed myself like way too much.
Yeah. Residency will nourish you and replenish you for those shows. That's what I find. It's a real, it's one of those places you don't have to think even about the meals. They cook for you. Like,
that's great.
I mean, how nice.
But I love the idea too. Like I do love this when I go travel with my sister, and it drives everyone else around us crazy because it's all like art. And we talk about colors, and we talk about paint, and we talk about styles, and everyone else is like, oh, enough already, right? So it'd be so lovely to do that with a whole bunch of other people who just want to talk the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the writers are a beautiful component actually, because they have another way of looking at things, and so it's just a really nice combination of people. Yeah.
Well, if you get a chance, I would love it if you could just send me a list of some of those residencies, because I know people are going to ask me.
Sure,
So I'll put it into the post. So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, just because this is self-motivated exactly, is I noticed that you put most of your work on Artwork Archive.
Oh, right.
And that's sort of your website, or that's yours?
That's sort of me kind of trying to keep track of myself.
But obviously you find that it works?
I love Artwork Archive. My website is actually, I'm in the process of redoing it. So it's Blogger from way back. I used to blog on Blogger, and so I have my domain name pointing to that. But I've linked Artwork Archive to Blogger. It's all kind of a mishmash. But I'm using Artwork
I had a hard time finding exactly what website is your website.
I know, you see, I'm working on it. But Artwork Archive is the best place to see the actual work. And I really like them because in the back end I can organize, like I can do invoicing, I can do expenses, keeping track of my expenses. They have a lot of different things that make it really easy to keep track of your work. Which galleries they're at, which shows they're at, and it's super clean and simple to use. So I really like it for that, and I'll keep it for that. But I am going to get a website up that's just a website, just as the tool of having a website. Although I do find so many people just go to Instagram to look at your work. Like if you hear of an artist, but it's still good to have a nice, clean website.
Well, you know what's missing on Instagram, and I just found that just because when I was trying to look for some background information about you, is that the Instagram and all the social media doesn't really, and even Artwork Archive doesn't actually share the artist statement and some of your words of how you feel about your work, right?
Right, that's a good point. That is, I try and write in my posts different things about that sometimes. And, there's Linktree. I think, do you use Linktree?
Yeah. Well, Instabio, same sort of thing.
It might be a good idea to put the artist statement in that Linktree. Might be a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe I'll do that too. Yeah. That's a good idea.
There's always
steal that idea.
And the thing about social media is it's always changing. Like you just get it down. It's like, oh boy, now we're going to do it this way. And now
I know, yeah.
But it's many things for sure. But it's a nice way to connect with other artists. I've discovered some amazing artists through Instagram or wherever. I mean, it used to be Facebook, now it's more Instagram. But yeah, it's a nice way of staying in touch and connecting and keeping an eye on different things that are going on all over, and do lovely conversations. I mean, that's really great.
That makes it fun, right? For sure. Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to, I always, at the end of my interviews, I always like to ask, if money and time are no object, what would your big hairy ass goal be?
You know what? I don't even know. Oh. What would it be?
Maybe you're already living it.
I kind of feel I am. I need to push. I need another dream because I feel like I'm living the dream. No, you know what I am lately, this pandemic has shown me how much, two things: the importance of family. My daughters live way too far away from me, and I'd love to have a little house and studio in the country somewhere with a garden, and I can just make peace with life. And so maybe that, yeah.
That
But,
sounds pretty good.
and being closer to my friends, the trees,
Yeah.
as I
Well,
grow.
like Tom Thompson, you need to have that little place in the middle of the woods, right? That you can just kind of go
Yeah,
to for a few
yeah,
weeks and then come back to reality and people so you don't go crazy.
yeah, something like that. That might
Yeah.
be it. Yeah,
Well, it sounds fabulous. Well,
yeah.
I've really enjoyed our chat very
Me
much.
too, Kate. Really,
And have a
having
wonderful day.
you
And
too.
actually, just to let everybody know what your Instagram handle is.
Sure. I actually have two because there's Holly. No, there's Riv. I don't even know it. Holly River 7 is my personal life and inspiration, and Holly Friesen art. And there are two Holly Friesen landscape painters in Canada, so beware.
We'll follow both of them, I guess, just in case. But
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
it's a
Holly
great place to
Friesen
see your
art.
beautiful work. Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, and have a
Appreciate
wonderful day. I've really loved this chat.
it. You
Okay.
too.
All right.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed that talk with Holly, and we're actually almost out of time, which is what always happens when I just don't pay attention. But we talked about so many great things, and I'm hoping that she will send us some of those residencies and stuff, because I think that would be really, really valuable. Next week we've got coming up is Julie DeBoer, and so she's a landscape painter, but she does very I don't know, they're really beautiful lines and sweeping color and stuff like that. And she also is running a mentoring program, so I think it'll be exciting to talk to her about that. And then we got Marion from Victoria, and she runs Red Art Gallery, so that will be really interesting too. So have a great day. As always, if there is anybody you want me to interview, then reach out and let me know, because it's always a fun way for me to get to talk to new people. Thanks a lot and have a great day.